Hey there. This week we're going to be talking about leads. We're going to talk about understanding when you're on the correct lead, how to get the correct lead. We're building up to flying lead changes in next week's show. We're going to give you the whole mechanics of what it takes to make the lead and how it all works. That's all coming up right here on Discovering the Horseman Within.
Gonna take a ride on one true horse.
When we start talking about leads, what we're really talking about is the inside hind leg at the lope. We see it a lot of times when we look at pictures of a racehorse, right? You see that inside hind leg reaching up underneath and the front leg reaching way out. And that's really the picture we see of the racehorse. You see him stretched out there reaching for that lead. But in reality, the lead starts in the hindquarters, and it's the inside hind leg going into a corner. So if your horse is using his dominant leg, happens to be the outside hind leg, that would put him on the incorrect lead, right? And you'd kind of go around the corner like you're on a flat tire. People ask me frequently, they say, what's the difference between a canter and a lope? Well, the difference between the canter and a lope is really the Mississippi River, right? If you're on the east side of the Mississippi, you typically canter. If you're on the west side, you lope. That's pretty much it. It's the same maneuver. But for today, we're going to use the word canter to explain what's actually happening. The horse's body is canting, right? So as we're cantering along, his inside hind leg is reaching out past his front leg. So if this was his front leg and this was his hind leg, instead of coming up and tracking up like this, the inside hind leg is coming forward and past and outside of the inside front leg. So your horse's body sits at an angle. He's canted. When he sits at that angle, his hip comes up and runs into your hip. And what that does is it twists your pelvis in the seat. So how do you know you're on the correct lead without looking down? You feel that shift in your pelvis. What if I'm on the incorrect lead? My pelvis will shift the wrong way. So if I'm loping to the left, right, my left hip should be further forward because that horse is pushing with his left hip. But if he's pushing with his right, so I'm on the incorrect lead, then my right hip would be further forward. My pelvis would be twisted that way. Let me show you what I mean. As I lope here, you watch, my left toe is in front of the cinch, okay? And I'm loping along, that's because my horse is on the left lead and he's pushed it forward. My right leg is behind or at the cinch, back about 2.5 inches. That's because my pelvis is canted to the left. So now what I'm going to do with my horse is I'm going to hold him on the left lead, okay? And I'm going to change directions. So I'm now on the incorrect lead. This is called a counter canter. And Chico says, I don't counter canter, buddy. I'm not unathletic. I stay on the correct lead. So I'm going to hold him to the counter canter, and you still see my left leg forward, even though we're going to the right. That's because his left hip is pushing forward. My right hip is back here, right? So as my right hip is back, I know I'm on the incorrect lead. I should be right hip forward, right there. Okay, so as I lope along, I know that. Now what happens frequently is people that want to take the lead, they start looking down. And they're looking right here, and as they look down, they want to go to the left lead, and it pushes them to the right lead, okay? So you don't want to look. You want to ride the horse with your body, with your eyes, and with feel. You want to keep your eyes up, looking where you're going. That sets your body up. If your horse is broke through the body, then what should happen is you ride him forward, you look where you want to go, keep your inside shoulder alive and up, take your right leg, move it back to the back cinch or position 3, push his hip over a little bit and ask him to lope off. And we take the correct lead. You make sure he's looking where he wants to go. You push his hip where you want to go. You look where you want to go. And you lope off. And you take the correct lead, right? That's ideal. That's if your horse is broke through the body. What if my horse is taking the incorrect lead every single time I ask him, right? I'm asking my horse to take the correct lead and I'm not getting it. Well, then what we need to do is we need to figure out why is your horse taking the incorrect lead. Is it because you're looking down, pushing him to the wrong lead? Is it maybe because you bend his nose to the outside and hoping you're going to throw his shoulder forward, which a lot of times creates a crossfire, right? A crossfire is the horse being on the correct lead with the front leg and incorrect lead with the hind leg, or occasionally vice versa. So, or is your horse just not understanding the cue? Does he just not understand how to move his body? In that case, one of the things that I do is I go back and I make sure that my horse understands positions 1, 2, and 3 and what they mean. So I'll ride my horse over and I'll just in a walk put my leg at position 1 and move the shoulders over. And I want to make sure that he's going to do that on both sides. So I'll transition and push his shoulders over. And like right there, he's a little slow, so I'm going to push and say, hey, come on now, get your shoulder over there. Then I'm going to go back, and this is critical. I'm going to skip position 2. We've been talking about this a lot lately. I'm going to go to position 3 and move that hindquarters. I'm going to move that hindquarters over and tell him, get that hind end over where it belongs. And I'm going to do that on both sides. Position 3, move that hindquarters over. Then I'm going to go to position 2, and I'm going to say, all right, can you side pass? For my horse to take the correct lead, he has to be able to side pass. Then what I'm going to do is a series of exercises to teach my horse to take the correct lead. There's things we can do in the hip area, and we're going to get to those, but for right now, we're going to use the rib cage. Because frankly, normally, when your horse is taking the wrong lead, the reason is that his ribs have bumped outside. Remember I said that inside hind leg has to come forward? Well, what if the rib cage is in the way? When that inside hind leg comes forward, it runs into the rib cage, and it can't go where it needs to go, so he takes the outside lead, okay? So, take the right lead for a moment. What I'm going to do is I walk away from the camera. To set my horse up now, I'm going to take position 2 and move his rib cage over. See how it leaves his hip behind? All of a sudden his hip is left behind, and I'm right here where I can pick him up to the lope and put him on the correct lead. This is an exercise that will really help get your horse set up to take the correct lead. So again, I'm going to take my right leg, position 2. I'm going to squeeze him over. Here you can really see he's looking right. His hip is back there on the right side actually. Now my left leg in position 3, and we're going to pick him up right there and lope him forward. Ooh. Again, move his ribs to the right. Leave his hips behind a little bit. My left leg goes to position 3. Both legs squeeze together. We lope off on the correct lead. Understanding the mechanics of what you're doing is critical, right? So if I want to take him over here, it's the same thing. Left leg, position 2. Push that rib over. Leave that hip behind. The horse's body is canted. Right now, he can bring that left leg forward because the hips are out of the way, and we can lope off. And that's the kind of piece, that's the kind of control that I want to have. I want to have my horse's body broke so that I can push him where I want to push him. When I have my horse taking the correct lead, then I need to practice that a ton until it's consistent, right? So a couple of you are saying, okay, well, what if my horse won't take the correct lead? Well, I'm going to show you 3 exercises right now that are simple, easy to do exercises that will get your horse consistently broke through the body and taking the correct lead. So the first one we're going to do, we're going to talk about moving his hips to his nose. This is by far the most difficult exercise. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work my horse in a straight line. Okay, so I'll ride away from the camera here and I'll show you first of all what we'd like it to look like coming towards the camera, and then I'll show you how to get it. As I ride along, what I want to do, I want to keep my horse straight, and I want to take my inside rein if I want to go to the right and tip his nose to the right and take my leg back and move his hip in position 3 to the inside, right here. That's setting him up with the haunches in to push that hip up past the front leg, right? So I'm giving my horse the ability to bring his hip to the inside. How? How did I do that? All right, well, first of all, you have to have your basic turn on the forehand. Remember, we already talked about that. I told you, get your horse broke in the body, ride him forward, stop the forward movement from going anywhere, put your leg in position 3, and bring that horse around. Now, when I get my horse doing that really consistently, then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move that horse around, and watch as I come around. I've got his nose bent to the right and his hips going to the left. And as he comes around, hips to the right, or left rather, I bring his nose right over there, release and walk out of it. Don't ask him to do it for a long time. Just get his nose to come over there, release and walk out. Walk forward, pick up on your horse's rein, put your foot to the inside in position 3, move his hindquarters around, and as he comes around, as you get ready to release him, bring his nose to the left, walk out of it. Take his nose to the right, use your right leg in position 3, move his hindquarters around. As he comes around, as his hips come around, bring his nose to the left, right there, walk out of it. You notice we didn't release, drop it, walk out as fast. We actually held him there for just a moment, held him in that frame. Once I get him consistently doing that, then I'm going to go back to working a straight line. And you can do this along a fence. It works really nice. We're not going to use a fence right now because it doesn't line up with the camera angle. But as I walk towards you, I just put my leg back there in position 3. What if he doesn't step over? Take his nose, push it over there, bring it back, walk forward. So again, I'm working to the left. I'll let you see it as I go away. I've got his nose bent to the left. I put my leg in position 3. If he doesn't take his hip over there, bring his nose to the right, shove his hip over, bring it back. Pick his nose up to the left, put my hip over here to position 3, and right there you see that horse pushing his hip over. Now, getting that at a walk, fantastic. Now get it at a trot. Get that horse trotting, pick him up, move that hip over. If he doesn't, take the rein, drive his hip over, bring it back. Keep him trotting. Until when you pick that rein up, put your leg in position 3, he pushes his hip right over there. Now, you finally got it at a trot. Let's take it to a lope. As I come straight to you, pick your rein up, slip your leg back to position 3, move that horse's hip right over there. Ooh. If you aren't getting it at the lope, go back to the trot. Get it good at the trot until you have it soft. Now, when you have that ability to shove that hip to the inside and almost guarantee that the horse is going to take the correct lead. Now, occasionally what can happen is you push it too far. And when you push it too far, you actually put the outside hind leg underneath of him and it will take the lead. So be careful, you're not trying to get the horse to look like that for the lead departure. What you're really looking for is that right there. That's almost too much, right there. That's what you're really looking for. You just want that horse's hip. If we're gonna go to the right, to step right there is plenty. To the right, just swing over to the right and be ready to lope off. You get that exercise and your horse is gonna start taking the correct lead. But what if he doesn't? All right, I have 2 more exercises that I'm gonna show you that work to trick the horse onto the lead. The first one, we'll use the fence over here, and it's a rollback into the fence. So you'll trot the horse up to the fence. When you get about 3 feet from the fence, tip his nose to the fence, turn around and trot off, and do it again. You come into the fence, coming in on an angle. When you get close to the fence, tip his nose to the fence, turn around and trot off. Now, I really want to lope off. So when my horse starts feeling like he's understanding it, I'm going to come into this circle. I'm going to tip my horse's nose into the fence and lope off. And it helps him take the correct lead because his hind legs slow down to a trot. His hind leg naturally comes up underneath of himself. As he comes into this fence right here, that hind leg comes underneath of himself and he drives off into a lope. And that exercise will work most of the time. Now, I have one more exercise that I really like, but I have to give you a disclaimer. I call this start-stop, and I promise you, for me, it works 20% of the time. 20%? You're like, well, who's excited about that? What that means is it works 1 out of 5 times. So if I have a horse that won't take the correct lead, and I can't get him onto it, and nothing is working, I do this 5 times in a row, and 1 out of the 5 times, he'll take the correct lead. Start-stop is not much, but it's kind of crazy. All right, so what you're doing is the horse takes the wrong lead. So you back him up, you stop him, back him up, and start him again, right from a standstill. And you push hard. And if he takes the wrong lead, you stop him, back him up, and you push hard, right from a standstill. And if he takes the wrong lead, now, wrong lead, I told you how to feel that, right? So at home, I tell my students, 3 strides on the wrong lead is your fault. Feel it and fix it. Change it, right? So don't let him lope forever. You pay attention. Don't look down. Feel it. And at first you're like, well, I can't feel it. Get a spotter and have him tell you yes, no. Don't say right and wrong because that gets confusing. Yes, no, right? That's it. That's all they have to know. And you push this horse up. And what happens is as you're backing him up, 1 out of the 5 times, the inside hind leg in the lead you want gets up underneath of him. And when you drive him to the lope, suddenly he pushes off that hind leg and he lands in the correct lead, okay? And suddenly your horse is loping on the correct lead. Now, next mistake, you're so excited that he's on the correct lead finally that you're gonna lope him forever. Don't do that, because he's gonna get tired and he's gonna get resentful in that lead. That's why he's not using it in the first place. He's not conditioned to it, he's not strong enough, he doesn't feel good on it. Lope him a half a circle, stop him, go lope the other side, and then bring it back. Do it again until he gets consistent and your horse will start learning to enjoy the correct lead. You know, when you see a well-groomed horse, you know it's not an accident. In fact, what you know is that there was a plan and that you followed that plan to completion, and that's why the horse looks good. Honestly, there's these old sayings that we hear all the time, cleanliness is next to godliness. And sometimes you'll hear someone jestingly tell you, well, my success is due to my good, clean living, or some statement similar to that. And while we joke about it, there's a lot of truth in it. The truth is you need to live your life daily with a plan for success. If we start out to just sort of bumble through and not know what decisions we're actually going to make before we get there, we may make the wrong decision. God lays out a plan for your life, and as long as you glorify Him in what you're doing, then you're following that plan. And that's really where we need to be. When I sit down and say, all right, I'm going to groom this horse, what I say is the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to bathe him. And then once I've bathed him, I'm going to let him dry, and then I'm going to clip him, and then I'm going to brush him, and I'm going to rub on him until he shines. And that's exactly the way I try to live my life. I try to figure out where I'm going, what I'm going to do, and how is that going to glorify God. Before I finish deciding whether I'm going to do it or not, I decide, can I glorify God in what I'm about to do? And if I can't, then I don't want to do it. Now, I'm not promising you that I never make mistakes or that you're never going to make mistakes. I'm not promising you that you're not going to have bad days. No, that's going to happen. Bad things happen to good people. That's life. We have a free will. We have that. But I am telling you that when we set out to live in a manner that honors and glorifies God in all we do, then people will glance at your life from afar the same way you glance at a well-groomed horse, and they'll say, you know what? That person is someone I would like to be around and someone I'd like to spend time with. I hope you've enjoyed this and hope it's been helpful to you. I love talking about leads because they're one of those things that people find confusing, but honestly, once you understand them, they're not, and they're a ton of fun. Thanks, and until next time, may God bless the trails you ride.
Find out more about Ken McNabb horsemanship at kenmcnabb.com.
That one true horse, the perfect partner.